move towards imploding the traditions of our country in terms of the example we set for the world.
The only other explanation I can offer, Senator, is that the General Counsel's office often operated in a sort of compartmentalized fashion, that it was not unusual for me to get a request from Jim Haynes to, for example, see what information I could find out about interrogation and JIPRA and SEER, and I'd find out just accidentally 2 weeks later that someone else was doing the same thing, or that it was going to be used at Guantanamo. I might find out 6 months later and never have any knowledge, and never be part of any discussion that, oh, this is what we want to do with it. The question was, can you find out if there's any material that is available on effective interrogation? Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator Martinez is next.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I believe that context is terribly important in this very difficult subject which we're treating. I know that many well-intended people were dealing under incredibly stressful circumstances, and the need to obtain actionable intelligence so that our country could be protected was, I know, uppermost in their mind. Obviously, mistakes have harmed our nation were probably made, and excesses that were, as I think one of our next witnesses will discuss, were simply cruel, are not a part of what America is about. So with that, this panel, I don't have any questions of the current panel, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Attachment to what? I understand. Thank you. We just have a brief second round. Mr. Schifrin, Colonel Baumgartner testified that you asked for a list of physical pressures relative to interrogation. That's his testimony today.
I don't recall that, Senator.
Do you deny it?
I don't recall it. I note that the memo that you referred to in the book is not directed to me. It's directed to the General Counsel.
I understand, but I'm asking you, the testimony was that you had requested from him that list.
I don't believe I ever used the term physical pressures. I believe the only thing I ever asked for after the initial trench was how to, briefings, manuals, anything like that. I would never say, I don't think I ever said, I need something on physical pressure, because I had no...
Colonel, you stick to your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Senator, may I add one thing?
Sure.
The memo refers to a follow-on question resulting from a meeting with JIPR and the General Counsel, OSD General Counsel. That would be Mr. Haynes. I've never met in person Colonel Baumgartner before. I did not attend a meeting with Colonel Baumgartner. So, to the extent these memos are responsive to requests at a meeting, I didn't attend that meeting.
All right. I think Colonel Baumgartner was referring to a phone conversation.
He did, but the memo itself says this is follow-on questions from a meeting.
Okay. I think, though, his testimony relates to a phone conversation.
I understand.
And you deny that. You used the term physical pressures, and he sticks with his testimony, so there's clearly a difference there. Did he ask you for a list of carrots? You talked about carrots. You were never asked for a list of carrots, were you?
No. By Mr. Haynes or something?
Yeah, by anybody.
The only discussion I specifically recall having was with Major General Dunleavy.
All right. Now, when you, Colonel, you've testified here in a very forthcoming way that the use of these tactics in an offensive way was not what this program was designed to do. It was not designed to use the tactics in the SEER program against detainees. Is that correct? Offensively?
Senator, or Mr. Chairman, I believe I said that we developed these tactics for use and training. That's their purpose.
And I think
and to export them is is the decision of folks above my pay grade.
All right, but you're aware of the fact that the export of those is not the way the program is designed. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, do you know whether or not, and let me just refer you to hold it. Do you know who Major General James Soligan is? He's the Chief of Staff of the Joint Forces Command?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he was, that is the Joint Personnel Recovery Agency's higher headquarters, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the memorandum that I referred to in my opening statement, where he says the use of resistance to interrogation knowledge for offensive purposes lies outside of the roles and responsibilities of JPRA. Did you hear me quote from his memo on that?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with that?
Sir, I wasn't privy.
No, but you agree that it's outside the responsibility of JPRA? The use of resistance to interrogation knowledge for offensive purposes lies outside the roles and responsibilities of JPRA.
I would say that, like my commander's philosophy was when I was still active duty, use of our guys in an offensive manner was not what we were all about. We were about training.
Right. Now, when that was misused in that way, which it obviously has been from everyone, from testimony here and from the material that I presented, has anyone, to your knowledge, been held accountable for the misuse of that program? It's not intended to be used offensively. It was. Do you know of anybody that's been held accountable for the misuse of that program? That's my question.
Sir, I have no recollection of any of that, no.
Are you aware of the fact that the SEER resistance training techniques made their way to Iraq, and the way I describe it, also instructors from the JPRA SEER school went to Iraq, that the Inspector General reported that in September of '03, at the request of the commander of the Special Mission Unit Task Force, the JPRA deployed a team to Iraq to provide assistance to interrogation operations?
Sir, I was retired by then.
All right. I understand. But assistance to interrogation operations is not the purpose of JPRA.
Sir, I have no knowledge of that.
I know, but you do have an opinion as to whether that is the purpose of the program.
Sir, I was not part of that decision-making process. I don't have a comment on that.
You don't know whether or not assistance to interrogation operations, being present in interrogations, is part of the program?
Sir, I was not part of the decision-making process that led to the decision to send those folks, whether they went or not.
I'm aware of that fact. You disagree with Mr. Soligan, with General Soligan, on the question of whether or not the use of resistance to interrogation knowledge for offensive purposes lies outside the roles and responsibilities of JPRA? Do you disagree with him?
No, sir, I didn't say that. If that's what General Soligan says, then I don't have a problem with that, because they were under his control, certainly not mine.
All right, and the Deputy Commander of JIFCOM, Lieutenant General Wagner, when he said relative to interrogation capability, the expertise of JPRA lies in training personnel how to respond and resist interrogations, not in how to conduct interrogations. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree that what he said following, that requests for JPRA interrogation support were both inconsistent with the unit's charter and might create conditions which task JPRA to engage in offensive operational activities outside of JPRA's defensive mission? Do you agree with that?
Sir, that's consistent with what we had in place for policy when I was still active duty.
All right, and are you, again, I want to ask you, I know you weren't there and you described it, but do you know of anybody that has been held accountable when the charter of JPRA and its purpose was violated and it was misused? I'm just asking you, do you know of anybody?
I have no knowledge, sir.
Well, one of the problems here is that Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Defense just said the other day, when he fired two top officials in the Air Force, Secretary Gates said that during his tenure, quote, "I've emphasized to all services that accountability must reach all the way up the chain of command, and that military as a whole must be willing to admit mistakes when they're made. That's the only way to fix it, and it's the only way to ensure that they don't reoccur in the future." When systemic problems are found, I believe that accountability must reach beyond NCOs and even colonels. And it sure as heck hasn't in this situation yet. At least that anybody knows of, unless any of the other witnesses know of anybody here that's been held accountable for the violation of JIPRA's mandate, purpose, and mission. We don't know of any, and that's kind of goes to the heart of the problem here. Senator Warner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier in the testimony today,